What are you doing up on there? Hey? Is that your Land Rover chassis? Just checking out, are you? There's a good girl. Hiya guys, update time on this Land Rover project. I've had at least one request to get on and get this transfer box part 2 done. The reason I haven't done that is I've been working on the casings, on getting them clean. Had a bit of a disaster there, to be honest. But I'll go through that when we actually get to doing the casings. And also, as you're probably aware, the weather here in the UK has just been a joke. For 3 weekends on the trot, we've had storms. It's been awful, and I don't like to repeat myself, but you might not have seen my videos before. When it's blowing a gale and everything, I don't like having the Mustang out on the drive, so that's tucked away in the garage. I don't do any work that could cause damage to that. So basically, while the weather's rubbish, well, when the weather's windy, then the Mustang will not be out on the driveway for fear of a bin blowing into it or something. So that's just me being a big girl's blouse, I know, but I love that car and I don't want it damaged. So today I've been doing some work on, the Mustang's outside because it's not windy. If you look out the door, you can see we've got some lovely sunny weather. If you can see there behind me, there's the Mustang and the Land Rover tub. So I've been doing some sandblasting. I'll show you that in a minute. I've been doing some painting with the brilliant Carolus S primer from Arkwright. Really worth giving a go. It's fantastic stuff. And then I've just got the chassis back into the garage, made a couple of adjustments to the frame, which makes life a lot easier, which I'll show you, and I'll give you the dimensions as well if you want to do the same and get your chassis up on a spit or rotisserie. Then I'll give you the height you need to get the right balance so you can just spin it over. I had it too high or low before, I can't remember which way now, but I had it too high or low, and the mount was too high, so as I was trying to swing it over, it was wanting to go back on itself all the time. So as soon as I tried to turn it on its side, it wanted to go back the right way up. So yeah, that was no good, so I've had to move the mounts to get it so it's easier to work with. So let's get this camera away from me. I don't want to be like right in your face. So we'll get the camera turned around now, and we'll talk about what we've been doing. Right, so here we go. There's Jess come to join the party. Here we go. We've got the this is one of the transfer box mounts, and that's the little bracket that goes on top of the high-low selector for the wiring clips to go into. And then we've got the other side here. This is the other mount. The actual engine mounts, everything are down there. My CO2's run out, so I can get a new bottle of that. Here is the back plate for the brakes. See that there? That's all in primer now, both sides. And then the actual drum down here, I sandblasted that as well. And then we've got the little output shafts here, or output hubs, should I say, output flanges for the front and the rear, output flanges. And I've given those a very thin coat of primer on the drive face, and I'll give them one very thin coat of paint just to stop them rusting again. You shouldn't really be clamping up on paint, but I don't think a tiny little thin layer is going to hurt. To get these apart, what I did was pull the snap ring with a circlip up to the steel guard, the cup that protects the shield, the seal, and then just put it in the press and pressed it through, and used the circlip as like a stiffener to stop it just bending that, and that enabled me to get the bolts out so I could paint it all and de-rust it and everything. This one wasn't too bad. This one sits inside the brake drum, but that one was a bit of a mess. The other thing was, because of the fantastic, well done, great idea of getting rid of the felt seals and covering the splines in bloody bearing fit, the only way I could get it out was to heat them up. So I put them in the oven, about 220 degrees I think. I heat soaked them, and that seemed to be enough to sort of brush them out with a stiff wire brush and get all the rubbish out the splines. There's some rags shoved in there to keep paint out the splines at the moment. So yeah, so all coming together well. And here we can see that I've actually re-drilled these holes here, and I've moved the chassis down. So the chassis is now lower down as opposed with regard to the pivot. So it's actually lower down. So if you want to do this, if you want to make one of these and get the chassis right, when the chassis is horizontal, basically this pivot point here needs to be 1 inch below the bottom of this front cross member. Okay, so that is 1 inch below the bottom of that cross member. And then when we go to the rear, you can see here that I put that bar in as well and welded a piece into it there. When you get to the rear, basically your pivot is about level here, is about level with the bottom edge of the cross member. The best way to film that. So here's the bottom edge of the cross member, and that is about level with the centre of that. So that's your height wise settings, and that'll get you so that you can swivel it nicely. Another thing I just wanted to show you while I got the camera on mobile, if you remember, this is 2011, I wax oiled it from new, and if you look up in there in that outrigger, hopefully you can see in there, it's absolutely spotless. The wax oil's still there, so that's 9-year-old wax oil still in there. I don't know if you can see inside the chassis there. I'll do this again and get a torch actually. Okay, so there we go, we can look inside the chassis there. You can see how, I mean the camera's obviously focusing on the outer wall of the chassis, but you can see inside there it's all clean and rust free. You can see the wax there built up in the edges, and up inside this outrigger you can see up in there, you know, it's doing a fantastic job. Then when we look at the outside of the chassis, it's a right mess. Can't really see inside anywhere else. You can see inside here, see inside there that it's done a good job. Everything's good. That's really, you can't really see inside anywhere else at all. I did actually wax all down inside these tubes as well and everything. Maybe we can see something down in here. Yep, you can see in there, look how it's all can we or not? There we go. So it's all clean inside there. So wax saw does do the job, and when people tell you it needs to be redone every year or so, I don't believe them. As long as it's on the inside and it's not getting washed out by constant, you know, swamping or whatever, I think it should all be fine. So I'll get this camera on the stand now, and I'll show you basically what this rotisserie does for me. Right, I can't get the camera far enough away to sort of show you the whole chassis, so I'm afraid I've had to chop the back off. But you can see here, if I just give the chassis, which way is it? That way. You can see here that if I just give it a bit of a pull there, I can swing it around that way, and then I can have it in its normal position to work on it. Who's talking about 2-inch lifts? This is what you call a lift. And then you can see I can swing it over this way, like so, work on it from the side, or I can have it upside down, like so. And you can see that getting the right balance point is critical, because then you can just, you can just move it around with one arm. If you put it back on its side like this, with one arm, there it is. So it's really, really worth doing, guys. I've done this with body shells on a couple of cars, and it's so fantastic to be able to weld a body shell up rather than, you know, underneath. You're actually welding it from on top. So yeah, invaluable. This is going to enable you to get it like this. Get it all pressure washed and degreased and cleaned and everything, and then I can get it all painted, derusted, painted, and then get wax oil in it in every single angle. I'm also going to cut that rear cross member about and get it straight, because that's bugging me. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little, what was it, 5-10 minute video. It's just a sort of quick update really, so you know really what I've been up to. But yeah, this rotisserie, brilliant. I wouldn't be without it. And let's hope we can get on with this bloody transfer box. Basically what's happened is I decided to put all the parts in the dishwasher, as I normally do, and some of the castings were seriously affected by the salt or whatever, I guess, in the dishwasher. So I got some of that white flecking on there, so I had to re-go over it again with my acid and wash them off again. So yeah, that's what's happened. So I mean, I've always put, and because I'm a bachelor, I can. I've always put parts in the dishwasher and never really had a problem. But these, it was a couple of the little die cast plates that go on. They came out like covered in white fur. So yeah, I had to brush them off, clean them off with some acid, and then swill them off in water again. And of course, a lot of drying times and stuff, especially when it's this cold. Stuff takes forever to dry. So I actually got them in the house, drying out at the moment. So once they're dry, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. Today is Monday the 2nd of March, so maybe tomorrow I can make a start, because I know you guys are desperate to see that thing go back together. And what I'm going to do is a series of videos, and they'll all be called Ashcroft diff fitting. although the first part is going to be all about setting up the new bearings and everything, and setting up the preload on the input shaft, but that's the only part of the gearbox you don't need to take apart when you want to do your diff. So, sorry, not gearbox, transfer box. So if you're doing your own diff installation, I would seriously recommend just stripping the whole thing as per the manual, and then at least you can check and look at all the bearings. And you can imagine that if I hadn't have taken out my input shaft, that would have just burnt itself away to high heaven. The other thing I've noticed, there's been some scuffing on the intermediate shaft where it's clamped up against the casing, and I'm wondering if, of course, when you set the preload on the intermediate shaft, you have the resistance of the input shaft as well. So if when the factory build them, if they think, oh, we have a value of, say, I don't know, 15 pounds inches to turn that, okay, the tightness of the input shaft would have probably already given them 50 pounds inches with no friction on the bearings at all. So I've got a feeling the intermediate shaft bearings were loose and the input shaft bearings were tight. So let's get it put back together properly and make it better, because that was terrible. There's no, I mean, I may be a couple of thou out, but I think I had something like 13 thou preload on that shaft. So anyway, the next video you see will probably be another one of the Land Rover Tamiya model videos, because I've done 4 or 5 of those. They're way ahead. And then we'll get the transfer box video started. Once I start, I won't stop, because I need to get that done. So it's out the way, so I can do grinding and welding stuff. I need a bigger workshop. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.